Hey, Al McCoy here, and you are listening to the Solar Panel, the Phoenix Suns Show.
We appreciate you watching the Suns Solar Panel podcast. Remember that you can always subscribe to the audio version of the full podcast anywhere that you do subscribe to podcasts. My name is Tim Tompkins. On the episode today, Mr. Greg Esposito, Mr. Dave King. So we were trying this new thing where when I said their name, they were either going to wave or say something, but apparently both decided to stay silent.
Well, I wanted to make it as awkward as possible. You said you were going to slow down when saying our name, so I thought I'd slow down when I waved too.
There's nothing better on an audio this is the YouTube version, but this is also going to be as an audio podcast. There's nothing better than just people waving in silence.
All right.
It's like miming. Miming is awesome.
I think we should do a whole segment where we just mime out what we're talking about just on the audio version. It'd be great.
Well, I know sign language. Fun fact. So growing up, going to like high school and college and everything, I did sign language instead of Spanish or French or something because you never have to write a paper. And it actually worked out really well. You
know, that could be a really good new thing. It's just sign language podcasts.
Sure.
A niche. It'd be a niche.
Now, do you have when you take sign language write papers because you use emojis to write out what you're using?
It's so disrespectful in so many ways.
We no longer use our hands with sign language. It's just emojis.
It's just
emojis.
It's true though. What are you gonna do when you write a paper? Like draw out people signing? You know, it doesn't work that way.
Fun fact: the gorilla, the Phoenix Suns gorilla, communicates via sign language.
Yeah.
That's a joke there. It's
gorilla language, I think. I don't know if it's sign language.
Know how long it's been the same person that's been the gorilla?
It hasn't been the same person. I'm probably breaking all sorts of rules, but it hasn't been.
Really? What?
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Oh my God, Greg. I don't know if I can get out of bed the rest of the day.
There was one guy in the 80s and early 90s in the Madhouse on McDowell days. There was, I think, one or two in the 90s, and then in my time with the Suns, I saw 3 different gorillas.
Wow, that's honestly really surprising.
How can you tell?
Having worked,
because I knew the guy in the costume. That's how I could tell.
Wait, he actually goes around without the costume?
The guys that do that for a living take it incredibly, incredibly seriously. So I'm really surprised that there's been so much turnover in that position.
Well, I mean, some of it is the acrobatics that the gorilla's expected to do. That takes a toll. I mean, so
I always wondered how they showed up to job interviews. Like when you're hiring for the gorilla, do they have homemade gorilla uniforms they wear?
Fun fact: the gorilla actually has an actual job title with the Suns and stuff, but it isn't the gorilla. So I am really probably breaking. I honestly don't remember what it is, but honestly, this is probably of everything I've divulged on this podcast. If everything I've divulged on this podcast, this is probably the one that could get me in the most trouble. It's funny enough. Not Lon Babby impressions or inside info about trade deadlines of the past or anything. This one's probably the one that I have to tread the lightest on, which is the funniest part because it's a stupid mascot. But I'm actually choosing my words carefully when we talk about this.
Well, I know with mascots that I was working with, when they were trying to find open mascot positions, it often involved sending in demo tapes of them working, and that sort of was the interview process.
Fun fact, I'm not sure if he still is doing it, but the gentleman who was the gorilla when I left the Suns actually was the New Orleans Pelican at one point before he was the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, no, it's a career thing for him. They take it incredibly
scary Pelican or the fun Pelican?
He was both. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. Now
I'm sure they hired a brand new person to be the fun Pelican.
This is probably the one thing that could get me sued too if anybody from the Suns listens.
You might as well just release the person's name and
I'm
add.
gonna,
Why not?
I'm gonna get sued. Another fun fact: I actually have one of the Gorillas jerseys, or he wears the warm up jacket, but I actually have one of those, a game worn Gorilla jacket.
It's not too big for you.
Oh, I don't wear it. It's just in my closet of jerseys and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that probably would get me in trouble that certain people knew that I had that.
If anybody tries to sue you, if you ever need a lawyer, I'm incredibly well connected with a plethora of lawyers. So
Wow. Yeah. I don't even want to know why.
no, I just happen to have a lot of lawyer friends, like a lot of them, in a lot of different like facets. It could be really handy one day.
Get Florida lawyers on your case. For you.
Hey, and we make so much money on this show that my legal fees are covered too, so we're good.
Right.
I do this.
we
I
have
do
a
this for you, the fans. Could
So-
you imagine? Could you imagine actually getting sued because you talked about a mascot in a sports league a little too much, divulged a little too much information, and got sued by a team about a mascot?
Hopefully they have better things to do, like fixing their shitty roster or.
Have you seen this organization? They don't have better things to do. Let's be
So on
honest.
Friday night, I was really fun. On Friday night, Bob Baum, who has spent 43 years as the AP guy in his career, in the last 20 or so covering the Phoenix market, he got recognized by the Suns pregame last night, and they gave him a signed basketball in a glass box and all that. And the announcer, the script that Vince had to read over the loudspeaker was great, because there was literally a line in there that said, Bob Baum, who never once in his career used an unnamed source for a story, had a wonderful journalistic career. And all of us are like, excuse me? What dig was that meant to be? I mean, Bob was joking about it. He's like, dude, Jerry Colangelo was my unnamed source for about 20 or 15 of those years, but
the F-bomb, the bomber, Bob Baum, one of my favorite guys. I sat next to him on press row for 2 years, and they're not a more inadvertently entertaining man than Bob Baum. It's a shame that he's leaving, but I'm glad he gets to go enjoy time with his family. He was telling me he's gonna go spend time with his grandkids. So
yeah, he said he wanted to change his Twitter handle. It's right now Bomber PHX Phoenix, because he's gonna move out of state and live in a remote area or whatever, in a tiny town.
He's gonna lose that verified check mark if he does.
I don't think Bob cares.
Yeah, but no, Bob doesn't care. But he said, my first thought was to call myself Bomber at Rest, but then I thought people would think I was dead. So
that's very typical Bob Baum. Congratulations on a great career, Bob,
yes.
And for letting the Suns insult other writers while giving you a farewell. So
tell you what, Bob, text me or tweet me if you are listening to this, because I would be completely shocked if you knew what podcasts were. So yeah, let me know, Bob.
So the trade deadline, we previewed it. It's been a couple of weeks talking about it. I know everyone was really excited. It has come and gone. There were 20 plus trades, which this was a trade deadline in which a lot of people said there's a lot of buyers, there aren't very many sellers, not a lot's going to happen. It ended up being 2 days of hysteria on NBA Twitter. Anthony Davis was not moved. My fantasy basketball team is incredibly pissed off about that. But on a non-Suns perspective, who in the NBA do you think, what team in the NBA, I should say, had the best trade deadline?
Nope, I'm going to go with who, because that's the way you posed the question to us originally, and it was Jared Dudley. Did you guys watch his Twitter account during the deadline and after? That man does not care what he says or who he says it to, and I love it. He was great, and I would actually love to see him. If we're going to go with an inexperienced former player as a general manager for this organization, at least let's make it entertaining. Give me freaking Jared Dudley. Could you imagine him as the Suns GM turning to Twitter can't believe XYZ turned down my offer for this guy, or really love the way, Anthony Davis plays the game, hint, 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 kind of thing. Like, I would love Jared Dudley as a front office executive, much more than the current situation we're in. So, JD, come back and save us.
I was totally thinking the inside the NBA guys from TNT taking over the Suns front office. Kenny Smith wants to be a head coach. You've got Charles Barkley. He could be like the vice president of basketball operations. You'd have to have Ernie Johnson actually bringing some sanity to the show, and they could take over the pregame and postgame stuff from Tom and Tom. And they could make trades in between. It would be awesome. I would love those inside the NBA guys.
So you just fired the GM, the pregame and postgame guys. I mean,
coach.
Come on, the coach. Like,
all while not actually answering my question. That was actually really impressive of both of you. So I'll give you my answer. Keep this actually NBA related. The Houston Rockets for trading Brandon Knight and Marquise Chris while somehow adding a competent role player.
They weren't even the only pairs of guys who were retraded multiple times. I thought that was great. Who were the Wade Baldwin and somebody else from Portland got traded like 2 times in a week as well. All right,
Nick Stauskas.
Nick Stauskas, yeah. Let me go with my favorite. My favorite, I think, was Philadelphia, and in a potential train wreck kind of way. Philly went all in, gave up everything they had to have potentially a pair of guys who are only going to be there for 3 months. They're only going to have enough money to re-sign one of them. And they gave up so many assets for just a pair of tweener forwards with Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. And those guys will be great. They will for a few months. But when Philadelphia loses in the second round of the playoffs, at least one of them is leaving for an offer somewhere else.
Yeah, but they got Boban too, which is a win for social media everywhere. The real winner, if I'm going to take your question seriously, Tim, and I know that's a rarity, but I would go with the Boston Celtics being the real winner of the trade deadline, because since Anthony Davis wasn't dealt, they now, I think, moved to the front of the line of who New Orleans wants to do business with when it comes to the offseason. And anytime you can get one of the top 3 players in the game, you become a winner in this. And that means LeBron James is probably the loser of the trade deadline, because his best opportunity to get Anthony Davis was before the Celtics really had a chance to get involved.
Overplayed their hand a little bit. I thought it was funny in the East. All of a sudden, like, every team at the top started making moves. So, to your point, you had Philadelphia that got Tobias Harris. I'm like, wow, that makes him really good. Then you had the Bucks who went out and got Mirotic. I'm like, wow, man, that is great. Wow, good for them. They're really making sure they put a foothold in. And then the Raptors go and get Marc Gasol. I was like, look at all these teams making moves now that LeBron James is gone. They want to make it to the finals.
LeBron James is making moves too toward the end of his bench, 6 feet apart from his teammates.
Yeah.
Well, and to not touching the ball in the final seconds of a game against the Celtics there too. Well, you noticed that?
He was being guarded fairly well.
It's a LeBron freaking James.
Yeah. Yeah, you're letting yourself be guarded if you're guarded fairly well as LeBron James.
Yeah, it was an interesting deadline though. The East did get better. I'm not sure. The Raptors, I think, cosmetically got better, but I'm not sure they actually got better. I like what the Bucks did the most, and you know what
I think the Raptors actually got more playoff better than they were. I think definitely Marc Gasol, when he can channel his youth for a few games, is going to be tons better than Jonas Valanciunas would have been in the playoffs.
I think it's an if, not a when.
Keep the offense moving.
Yeah, that's
his great pass. Exactly. So he'll be much better for the Raptors in the playoffs. He's just probably not going to make much of a difference in the regular season over what they would have already done record-wise, but playoffs they're definitely better off.
But you look at the Bucks though, and do you realize that Eric Bledsoe could be the starting point guard on a finals team? That's how good the Bucks are. I've seen this
before when it comes to the Bucks, and I'm sorry if this is just me I've seen this before, but We saw Mike Budenholzer take a 60-62 win Hawks team that nobody thought could be beaten in the playoffs, and I don't think they got out of the second round that year.
Yeah, there's kind of a difference though, Dave. That Hawks team was a bunch of, basically that was a group of 5 guys who were playing great as a team, but nobody was a star. The Bucks have Giannis Valanciunas.
You're suggesting, that the alphabet might be
Teague.
different?
What was that, Tim? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I was saying that team that he brought, that was that starting lineup was Jeff Teague, Paul Millsap,
Al
Horford.
Yeah,
And if I
not
remember correctly,
exactly.
That team was really strong during the first half of the season. The second half of the season, they kind of tailed off a bit, and then to Dave's point, went to the second round and lost.
My whole point is the Suns' last actual point guard could be the point guard on an NBA Finals team, and isn't that going to piss anybody else off? As we sit here,
like shit for the
Hey,
Suns. Wasn't good.
This is the Eric Bledsoe that also got shown up by Terry Rozier last year. So we don't know how the playoffs are going to go.
honestly, it's better than what the Suns have had since they got rid of him.
Did you guys see the article I wrote yesterday?
No.
Okay.
No, I have a life, Dave.
I literally, and I really appreciate the guys on 98.7 Burns and Gambo. They spent 15 minutes talking about my article. Thank you very much, guys. You guys are awesome. So I wrote that exactly what you just said, that the Suns haven't really had a guy running next to Devin Booker with any talent since Eric Bledsoe, and how bad that's actually been, and how Tyler Johnson, while he is not a great player, he's at least competent, and the only bar he has to cross is to shoot better. Now, don't look at Friday night, but the only bar he has to cross is to shoot better than 38% from the field, 28% from three-point land, and average more than 3.5 assists, and he'll be the best point guard they've had since a happy Eric Bledsoe.
Hey, small sample size. He's not there yet, Dave.
No, but God, is
I
the bar
know.
low enough? I mean, the only bar lower is the limbo contest in Mexico. I mean, come on, that is low bar.
I think the only bar lower is the expectations of this show. We've gone almost 20 minutes, and the closest thing we've talked to Suns is me mentioning Eric Bledsoe and talking about the gorilla, right?
Those are great. And Bob Bomb.
For what it's worth, I had about 5 minutes worth of discussions about the NBA trade deadline, excuse me, at the very beginning of the episode, and then we were going to go into the Suns, but you guys have a fantastic ability to talk about nothing for a long time.
That's why you folks are listening to this show. You're not listening for total analysis. We have NBA nerds on other podcasts out there that you can listen to. We're the dudes. You're just like going, oh, what are they going to say next?
I want to hang out with these guys and hear Dave act like an old guy, Tim mispronounce things, and Greg just go on ridiculous rants. That's why you're here.
You still made yourself sound better than the rest of us. God, you're so, jeez.
I actually based that off an iTunes review that we got recently. That was almost exactly what it said. So I was nicer to you two guys than the review was. So
I stopped reading the reviews. Please keep leaving them, but I got to tell you,
Why would they keep leaving them if the primary host stopped reading?
Hey, I read every single one of them, and I find them highly entertaining.
And
even
I
the
read
bad
all
ones.
my side comments, and it's great.
There was a point. So I've been podcasting for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years probably at this point, like NBA podcasting. And there was a point in which I really cared about every review, and I read it and I thought, man, what do these people think? Now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't give a shit, man. They're either going to listen or they aren't. The numbers are good. That's good enough. We're trending upwards. Anyway, we do want to thank a listener because your support is incredibly important to us. And we value it.
We want to thank our one listener. Woohoo! And
Tim
if you're
doesn't give
listening right now, you're it. Thank
Tim.
you.
Tim doesn't give a crap what you think, but he wants to thank you.
No, the listener. So if you're listening right now, thank you. We don't need to name you.
No, we do need to name you. So if you want to support the podcast, it's really easy to do. Open up the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube right now, and there's a little support the podcast button, you can support the podcast for $1 a month. If you do the $10 a month option, I will personally send you some Sun swag. It might take you a couple of weeks to get it because I don't want to go to the post office all the time. It's a real pain in my dick, you know what I'm saying? But I will go at least once every other week to the post office. So I do need to thank Louis Cicito for doing the $10 options. But Louis, here's the thing. I don't have your address, so you need to hit us up on the Facebook or the Twitter. Send us your address, and I will get some Sun swag out to you.
Yeah, tell us how to find you.
Yep.
Tim,
otherwise, I don't know.
Tim, you just buy a big roll of stamps, right? Just plaster a bunch of them on it, stick the stuff in your mailbox so you don't have to go to the post office. Or stamps.com. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, we'll get Tim one of those little the scales and he can ship stuff.
Sponsoring.
I'm proving that we can do it here, Dave. It's naturally integrated. Tim will mention you.
If you want to sponsor our show, we would love.
It's not the worst thing, but it takes up like my entire lunch break to driving down to the post office. I hate the post office. I don't want to spend my lunch break doing it. It's not the end of the world, but I will send it out. I'm happy to do it.
Go to the UPS store down there. They'll take your package too.
Tim,
yeah, there are closer
They'll
ones.
give you a pain in the dick as well.
Those are expensive. So there is a UPS store that is much closer, much easier to get to, but it is like $15 to send anything.
Stamps.com can fix all your problems. At-home postage printed from your computer using a postage scale. Stamps.com.
Wouldn't it be great if we could just show our package to our laptop and it just ships right from us?
I think you could get in trouble if you show your package to your laptop, depending on who's on the other side of it.
Get a pain in the dick then.
If you show your package to your laptop right now, I'm done with the show. All right, forever. I'm out.
Wait, no.
Okay.
So the Suns.
Still in the YouTube version, Tim?
Yes, the Suns.
Awesome.
The Suns. We were
speaking of a pain in the dick. Let's go to the Suns.
Speaking of packages,
texting while the first and only trade of the Suns happened. And I really thought to myself, maybe we should hop on and do a quote unquote emergency podcast talking about it, but then I thought they'll probably make another move. So in 24 hours, the episode will be outdated. Anyway, the Suns ended up trading Ryan Anderson for Tyler Johnson, Wayne Ellington. They bought Wayne Ellington out. Greg was a bit confused on the move. Dave and I liked it a lot more. My immediate takeaways were the Suns replaced an overpriced bench player with an overpriced role player. And James Jones did come out and say that they look at Tyler Johnson being a combo guard who will get plenty of minutes. So no, they don't look at him as a straight point guard. But to me, it was an upgrade, and they got something for Ryan Anderson. Your guys' thoughts?
I'm just super stoked that the Suns have Mose Schrute on the team.
Who?
Mose Schrute.
It's an office reference because Tyler Johnson looks like a character. It's Dwight's cousin, right?
Yes. Yes. Dwight's cousin who lives on the farm and doesn't really, he looks just like him. But anyway, I was excited about the Tyler Johnson part because, yes, you've turned Ryan Anderson into a playable player. I still have no idea what the heck would happen with the Wayne Ellington part, but definitely, like I said, I wrote about it yesterday. The bar is low for a playable, good rotation player, and Tyler Johnson has 4 years in Miami's rotation, and Miami's been a plus 500 team the whole time and have made the playoffs in 2 of those years. And that is more than almost any of these Suns guys can say.
Look, I have no problem with replacing the corpse of Ryan Anderson with somebody that can play. All right. I think my opinion on this was misunderstood in that way. I think this is a slight upgrade. It doesn't really answer any of your questions. I reached out to a couple NBA people to get a better feel on their thoughts on Tyler Johnson. Scrappy kid, is athletic, can shoot at times, not his strongest character all the time, not a real point guard. All right, that's what I got. He's a kid you're going to enjoy from his hustle, but
he doesn't have strong character.
No, not in the shooting isn't his strongest character of his game. Not that he doesn't have strong character, and strongest skill, correct. I'm fine with the player. Yeah, exactly. But I look at this, and now you have 47 million tied up at the shooting combo guard spot between him and Devin Booker next year, right? So now you got basically 2 shooting guards, 100 small forwards, no power forward, and no point guard to speak of. This move doesn't help you and doesn't necessarily hurt you. It just is. And that's where my problem is. This team got no better. They did not address the major issue here. And then they did something that they've done numerous times this year that actually had an impact on them at the deadline. They just waived a guy who is still very much a good player or a serviceable player in Wayne Ellington. And the reason that they couldn't get in on the Kristaps Porzingis move earlier in the week is the simple fact that they had cut guys that were expiring contracts, and they didn't have what the Knicks wanted in the end. If you had Tyson Chandler, if you had kept Trevor Ariza, these kind of things, or if you had kept, why am I blanking on his name? Austin Rivers. You would have had the trade chips to make a move to get an Austin Rivers.
These things are all connected. The Suns didn't have those contracts, yes. But also, can you imagine actually James Jones beating out Mark Cuban for anything? I mean, it still would have happened the way it happened. And the Suns would be sitting there with these expiring draft picks, expiring contracts, and have not moved them. James Jones even said it. He goes, yeah, those contracts could have helped, but if we didn't end up making the trade, they wouldn't have helped.
Yeah, but you would have at least had the option. I am sick of this. We can't do it because, well, we're the Suns. Figure it out. And James Jones' inexperience cost him.
We've had the last 4 years watching Ryan McDonough holding on to these expiring contracts through the trade deadline, and then the players being pissed off the entire season until then. He finally trades them, and it wasn't worth all the effort.
And guess what? This team is worse than any of those teams. I don't care about you could have had a pissed off Tyson Chandler.
This is what Ryan McDonough put together after 5 years in the job.
I get it. But it's now James Jones's mess to fix. And we talked about this at the beginning of the year when he took the job, that he should be defined by whether or not he got a point guard in here to make this team any better. And he's done jack with that. He added another small forward and a shooting guard. And as much as I like Kelly Oubre, they did nothing to improve this team. And he's a guy that says he doesn't want to necessarily rely on the draft. And all they've done is put themselves in a position to just have a good draft pick. It makes no sense. None of this makes any sense, and it's just frustrating. It's accumulation. It's not the fact that they didn't necessarily do anything. It's the fact that now we're sitting here, and yes, it goes into Ryan McDonough's tenure too. He's not off the hook here. That 2 years without a serviceable point guard, right? You put Devin Booker in a crappy position with having to be the primary ball handler. This thing is a bigger mess than we've dealt with. They now have 2 losing streaks of 10 plus games this season. I'm at an utter loss at where we're headed. And I know we've been here before, but we just keep hitting a new rock bottom, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all of it. Just figure something out. And I'm not sure James Jones is the guy that can, and yet I have a feeling he's going to be the general manager.
You know what point of the Suns season we're at right now? Is that it's the first time in my Suns fandom when I look at the schedule and I go, God damn it, the Suns are playing tonight.
Well, and
I used to get excited. Now I'm like, I gotta go watch this team lose again. It's not fun anymore. It's not fun. They've been bad for so long. We talked about it at the beginning, before the season started, that this season is not going to be like last season. That this season is going to be improved. Everything's like optimistic. We thought there's no way it can be worse. It is worse.
Dave, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Man, Greg, you are impossible to stop when you get on a rant.
I'll usually let Greg go. Hey, hold on. Actually, before we do any of that, I want to end this YouTube version because this YouTube version has been great, but it's been long enough. Take a break and let's talk about what were the biggest misses for the Suns on the trade deadline.